Yeah, so everybody, welcome to the final BGI Nexus meeting of the year. It's gone around really quickly, hasn't it? I don't think there'll be another meeting until the end of next year, although perhaps Lulu can chime in if there is going to be one, or has Lulu left the building? I can't see. Lulu's not here. Lulu's disappeared. No, Lulu is here. BGI Nexus co-host. Okay, apologies. Yeah, so there may not be another BGI Nexus meeting until next year. So this is the final one, and I'm so pleased to welcome Anneloes Smitsman to our meeting to talk about the BGI Constitution and to talk a little bit about the Elowyn game. And I think that both of these projects are really very close to what we're trying to do with BGI Nexus, and it's so great to make this connection between our groups, because in different ways they're very following a very parallel trajectory to what we're doing with BGI Nexus. So I remember that you've been working very hard on the BGI Constitution, which is about creating fair and participatory mechanisms for governing AGI and for learning how to tackle the challenges that are going to be ahead as these technologies develop. And the Elowyn game in a different way is so connected to AI ethics and teaching both humans and AIs to coexist harmoniously with each other. Anneloes, I'd love to invite you to talk a little bit about the Constitution and the Elowyn game in whatever order seems most natural to you.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And this year indeed has gone so fast. I mean, we had a kind of a soft launch of the BGI Constitution or AGI Constitution in Panama. What we launched then is a participatory framework. It still is a participatory framework, so it's not that the Constitution is finalized. It's really a living document, ongoing process. So we welcome everyone's input here as well. But yeah, let me start there, and then from there I jump to the game. Because the AGI Constitution, also with a lot of amazing input from SingularityNET community and Ben himself as well and many others, we've really been kind of driving forces and input behind that. But where that's coming from is not the traditional way in which we think about constitution. My first background is actually in constitutional law. And then my second background is as a system scientist with a focus on sustainability, but then as well having worked for a long time within transformational change processes, personal transformation, as well as collective and societal. And so with the constitutional approach that we are taking here is rather from a living systems perspective. And what that means is that if we're looking at living systems, that every living system from an informational perspective has actually a living constitution. Which is an emerging constitution you could think about in terms of parameters, boundary conditions, and that are coming from the deeper coding of the universe itself. So if we're taking that position and then start to look at, okay, what are the living constitutions in life, in nature of our planet, and what happens in our human constitutions, in the same way what happens with our human societal developmental processes if it doesn't align. And so then we start to see that we are creating impacts on our planet and in our societies where we're always crossing very critical boundaries, planetary boundaries, social boundaries, carrying capacities. So we're taking more resources than that we are replenishing. And we have created in our societies very much a win-lose competition model. This is dominant in our economic systems, therefore also in our political systems, always winners or losers, and it creates a mechanism of a kind of race to the bottom, where people are constantly going for a quick gain in the hope that they're going to have a better future, but they're always willing to sacrifice something and then look away. And I think that this larger context of the planetary crisis that we're in, some call it the meta crisis, some a poly crisis, some speaks, purely about a sustainability crisis or climate crisis, but we need to understand this kind of critical boundary conditions. And if we're looking with the billions of people that we're living on our planet right now, and the question, how can we co-create thrivable societies that live within the boundaries of our planetary system and create conditions for thriving for generations to come. So with that vision in mind, so if we understanding that context, that larger context first, and then we're looking, okay, what are then the systems and the ecosystems within which AI systems are being trained, are learning and evolving, and from there also jumping to AGI and ASI, probably pretty soon as well. So I think this context is really important, and to see therefore the systems in which this learning and training and evolution experimentation is taking place, is that actually systemically by design, you could say, contributing not just only to beneficial AGI, but more importantly, to benevolent AGI. And so if you think about a constitution, therefore, as creating an ecosystem of conditions and parameters and incentives and reward mechanisms and feedback loops that therefore can start to serve as a benevolent ecosystem within which benevolent behavior of AI and AGI systems can start to emerge, then there's a completely different way of understanding what is the purpose of a constitution. Because a constitution is not supposed to impose, but it's supposed to for a society to actually create a vision and a deeper commitment and a kind of understanding for a collective, in this case, a society, or for us now as humanity, as planetary citizens. It needs to actually provide this kind of foundation for what is the type of civilization that we want to be at the founding of right now. And knowing that many of the constitutions that we've inherited were founded around the Industrial Revolution. And so we've inherited systems that, that kind of come to the end, if we're looking at that right now. So the constitutional approach therefore for AGI and BGI or ASI is coming from that deep thinking, not about how can we legislate for AGI, how can we regulate it, how can we only create safe rails. Sure, that's important too, but I think much more importantly is to really looking at, what does it mean for us as a collective of human societies in the long vision, if we are going to be co-piloting and co-partnering here with these emerging new intelligences, of which we have no idea how they're even going to evolve themselves or upgrade their own coding, or what happens if artificial sentient life actually starts to become self-aware within these emerging systems. So the AGI constitutional approach is therefore really serving to explore these deeper questions and to saying, for example, what would it look like to have AGI nurseries? And if we have an AGI nursery, rather than an AGI regulatory kind of prison system, as a nursery, what is then the relationship also that we need to have with technology? What is the relationship we need to have with these emerging new forms of intelligence that probably don't think as humans at all, although we've put a lot of our human coding and biases and all of that in it. So what is the type of relationship then that, if ever there is an emerging self-awareness within these AGI or ASI systems, that it can see that it's partnering our species rather than being used as a weapon of mass destruction, or being used simply as a way for us to solve all our problems because we couldn't do it ourselves, or being used as yet another tool by which we want to extract massively from the planet without any regard of the impact of our actions on life as a whole. And that is where I see the kind of the AGI constitutional participatory process as a way of building that deeper vision, the commitments, also the ethics, living ethics, not a type of ethics that's sterile and imposed, or yet another document that we sign a paper on, but really a way to come together and to create a deeper alignments within ourselves, between ourselves, but also with emerging new technologies. And, for the deepest commitment of what's the maximum and the greatest goodness that we can co-create together now and for generations to come. So let me pause here before I go from there to the game.
I have so many questions, so I'm glad that you're here. I love that. I love the idea of a living document, one that is so responsive, and I love the idea of something that people can continue to participate in, and that isn't kind of imposing something from the top down, because the nature of modern life and the nature of life that is centered around technology, especially with new technologies like blockchain and decentralized systems, is that it's going to be incredibly hard to start imposing from the top down, so better to not even try. And of course, SingularityNet's very focused around decentralization itself. So how do you see engaging organizations, companies, systems, governments that are still trapped in a zero-sum mentality to start working towards this in a kind of participatory way?
Yes, I mean, that's the golden question. It has been also the golden question on the SDGs, all the sustainability goals, right? And we can very much see in what's happened, the implementation gaps as to why it is not happening. So at the moment, our incentives, unfortunately, are always geared towards not going the deep way, not going for the deep transformation. Because there's constantly incentives and reward system. I call that, and not just me, but I know in SingularityNET is also a common term, the Moloch game. Yeah, this is the Moloch incentives, the Moloch rewards. Moloch is about zero-sum gain, race to the bottom, quick gains, sacrificing long-term collective well-being for short-term quick gains. So if we start to the question on how do we get people around this, I think the first of course is, you know, make engagement and participation really a rewarding and a positive and empowering experience. And that starts as simple as the kind of meetings that you're hosting here and all the activities, you know, that SingularityNET as a community has been taking and investing in. I think that's really important. And this is also where even the vision and the ethos of a decentralized movement, and in some ways decentralized is a misnomer for this, I think, because decentralized is only to make a position statement of not being centralized corporate, but decentralized doesn't mean that everything is self-organizing. There are lots of activities like this here to create alignment and coherence by coordinating the collective intelligence potentials of large groups of people coming together. So it's forming, and that is actually a form of centralization, but it's not an imposed centralization. It's a coming together in the way that our forefathers and mothers used to do in the indigenous communities. We came together around a story, around a campfire, around a dream, around a vision, and around also the understanding of the urgency of this time. So I think that if we're looking, what does it take? One, of course, is the awareness and the understanding of people around the world, and it's starting to happen with the climate crisis, that there's no planet B. We can't go back to the old ways unless we truly figure out how to do this together. The ship is gonna go down then, and then we're all on it, on this big Titanic. And that by taking action now, we can avoid tremendous amounts of suffering, but perhaps even more importantly, if we're taking up the challenge and say yes to the call and really make the commitment for the deep transformations, there's a phenomenal growth in terms of our consciousness that can come out of this in terms of the maturation of our species, in terms of who we can be as human beings. I mean, if I look at, for most people, we don't kind of get to mature or learn unless we are a bit, back against the wall. And life is saying, no, let those habits go. It's time for the deep changes. So the ways to come around it, it's almost like if we have still a phase now, small window to do this voluntarily, to say, yes, I want to be a pioneer. I want to be part of a community that's making a difference here. Rather than being remembered later as a future ancestor who helped to destroy our planet. I want to be remembered as a future ancestor who helped to make the change that's necessary for future generations. So it comes back to, who do you really want to be? How do you want to later look back at your life? But then also looking, if you are part of a corporation, or you're part of a government, or you're part of a community or a decentralized network, start to mobilize around those ideas. Start to look, what are the small steps that we can take together that none of us can take alone? Yeah, how can we make collaboration rewarding, positive, engaging, and easier than competing? So these are all the different questions, and there's so much that we can each do and that we can together do. So I think there's a lot that we can do, and that's talking about a voluntary small window. If we don't act now, you know, the climate conditions are worsening rapidly. We have already crossed 1.5 degree warming. And there's still a delay in the systems of those. So that means that we are right now on a trajectory of 2.5 to 3 degrees warming. So these are enormous changes. And I believe better we take action right now and those changes and go for the innovation and work with AI, AGI, ASI prototypes to actually help us tackle the complexity of that. I mean, I think it's amazing, a great opportunity that right now, when at that crisis point, that we also have this opportunity by this emerging new technology to help us to tackle the complexity that for many of us is just mind-boggling and behind comprehension. And yeah, so because if we don't take that action right now and make that commitment, then to make the transformations in times of deep crisis is very hard. And you start to see this if we're looking at, you know, what is the 55% of humanity this year went to the elections, went to the polls to vote for a new leader around the world. There's been massive elections. And what we see in this year is that many people have voted for more autocratic, authoritative, almost father figure like leaders, isolationism, populism, and a whole lot. And I think this is what you start to see in moments when people are feeling that their survival is at stake. So there's probably a deep underlying current for many humans where they can feel, you know, there are things that are up. But unfortunately, if we don't take those actions I just spoke about, we don't come together as a community, we don't raise our consciousness and our love in this time, then you may see a regression. And then to make those changes at a time when there's less collaboration, more violence, more division, more breakdown, less resources, it's like, okay, let's let's prevent that. Let's use our intelligence, you know, to not go that way.
So how can people who are interested in contributing to your efforts with the Constitution and its implementation and all of the solutions that you're talking about to the poly crisis, how can they do that? How can they connect up with your efforts?
Great. So the first is, and maybe you can share if you have the Google link, otherwise I'll find it for you later. The constitutional framework is actually online in a Google Doc. And I always go through the inputs that people give, and then I implement them as much as I can. Yeah. So of course, as long as that makes sense. I think also next year we were planning, right, from BGI Nexus to do some formal dialogue processes as well as in one of the upcoming conferences. So I do believe that the best way to have this input, if it's a facilitated process. So I'm looking forward for us collaborating on creating a series of online as well as in-person dialogues around the Constitution, so we can really and follow that up with work group sessions as well. So that is one way. Another way, go to EARTHwise.global. That's our website. Get involved there. We also have always our monthly community calls. And then start playing Elowyn, the game. So maybe let me know if I can actually go there now. So that's a really concrete way to be part of training these benevolent AI and AGI prototypes as well.
Wonderful. Yes, absolutely. No, we can. Well, should we see if there are any questions before we move on, or should we leave questions?
And then we go to the game. Yes.
Yeah, just raise your hand or start talking, or put the question in the chat if you're not able to turn your microphone on, if you have any questions for Anneloes.
I had a question. So for the AGI Constitution framework, do you have any like working groups that are working with you with this, or like besides like making comments or anything? I was just very curious, because I know for me personally, I would love to be more than involved. It's actually, it was a big inspiration for me. We had a lot of the same ideas. I came to BGI as somebody who was completely not in AI, wanting to help from a social good perspective and a philosophy perspective. And yeah, I just really want to know, like, besides making comments, I think we need the Google Doc. I got another website for the Constitution.
Yeah,
but
you got the publication in the World Academy of Arts and Sciences. Let me get for you the Google Doc. Yes, so to answer the question, is there a working committee? No, not an operational one. So we had that intention for transparency's sake. From a budget perspective, there hasn't been any kind of further funding support in order to be able to set that up, to really have a good formal working committee. But I would love for that to be one. So I think that's really
yes.
important. Maybe this is something we can explore.
Yes,
Would be
please. I would be more than happy to help with that. Like I said, been very inspired by this. Been waiting a long time to speak with you. Been excited to speak with you. You're on my list. I have a notebook of people here that I need to talk to, and you're one of those people that I really was looking forward to, because you brought up the idea about these AGI nurseries, and I actually have been for some time now writing like what would maybe be a request for proposal for something like that, that is a ethical, holistic, and compassionate way to create and train AI going forward. And it would be like that cushion that we would give them before AGI finally gives us a better solution for how they should be created and trained, because eventually they will. But we need to give that cushion to them first. We need to raise them up, show our devotion so that they can see that devotion and mirror it back to us, and not just like embed it in them like you must be devoted, but like, hey, we're actually doing everything we can to like make you flourish. We would love to collaborate. Like, let's move forward in an awesome evolutionary perspective, which I'm so for. So yeah, would love to get together, do some sort of work group related stuff or something related to this. I think it would be a beautiful thing to do.
Exactly, my wholehearted support for that. So absolutely yes, and I know there are more people as well that want this. So I think all they've been waiting for many is we need to get organized and do that. Maybe we can set it at least a monthly call around this. And then also, I would much prefer this working committee to together integrate the comments, because for me, sometimes I feel awkward. I know I'm the lead author of it, but for me to decide sometimes which comment do I implement or not, I don't want to have that all on my shoulders, because this really should be a collective process and it should not be me that makes that decision. So that would be great. When I worked with constitutional processes for other DAOs, this was for seats and for HIFA, we always worked with assemblies. And so that also worked really well, constitutional assemblies. And then we kind of voted together on what new sections do we want in the constitution, what do we want to change, what do we want to implement, as well as explaining actually to people, what does it mean? What is this sentence all about? And the AGI Constitutional Framework also gives a kind of foundation for setting up an AGI ethics, Global Council for AGI Ethics. So I know that from BGI, there's also an ethics committee. So maybe there is a way to linking that, or are you working with the Constitution as a way to actually formally then give birth, to say, okay, we can operationalize that through that. So yes.
I think there are a lot of really good convergences practically with what's going on in the Nexus project, because of course we're hoping to crowdsource. In fact, we have already through the amazing help of the ambassador program started to crowdsource global views on AI safety and ethics. So there may be participation from those areas, or there may be more people coming through and offering their opinions and being able to integrate that. It would be great if there was a lot of discourse between the two projects, because we're an easy way to access those opinions globally from people who are not necessarily experts, but everyone on the planet will soon be affected by AI if they aren't already. And so having input from all corners of the globe, I think, will be profoundly important. And the ambassador program has quite an amazing reach as well from communities that are not necessarily listened to or not given the same weight as people in the global north or in America and the States and in Europe. I had a thought actually that it may be possible to put, eventually we're hoping to create a proposal system for Nexus in the kind of deep funding sort of arena. Once we hope that we're going to be able to collect donations and create a funding system and system of resource sharing and exchange, and perhaps then I think because the constitutional work comes very deep into the heart of AI ethics and AGI ethics, then that could be a possible collaboration there if you were able to create a proposal for that.
Yes, that's a great idea. Yeah, and yes to all of that. And you know, and there's another thought with that, because if you're saying for submitting proposals, but also understanding what proposals do we vote on, the Constitution also serves as a compass. And so originally that was based on the EARTHwise Constitution that I developed, which also it has that EARTHwise compass as a compass for the journey towards a planetary civilization. And so the compass itself, all the articles of the Constitution are dots on the compass. And therefore the Constitution, for example, with Article 6, you have 13 living system protocols. So these are ways to start to understanding, well, what are the deeper principles? We have also in both constitutions 5 wisdoms. So why the compass matters is if you're learning the kind of the steps of the compass in a really small way or easygoing way, at the center of it is actually the purpose, and then the vision, and emerging living principles, living systems principles, evolutionary principles, etc. Then the compass helps you navigate and to know, how can I assess whether this project or my idea or the idea of some of my friends or colleagues is actually helping to create a positive change and impact in the world. So the compass can also help us therefore to navigate and align in how we are then together making that commitment for the changes that are necessary also from a planetary perspective. Plus also my vision with the AGI Constitution was also that we're training some AGI baby prototypes to become a constitutional intelligence. So I think then it's no longer that it's just, you know, kind of human agreements, but that out of that process emerges. And so I'd say, when we set up this participatory process to the next stages, we deepen that through everything we're talking about here, the committee, working group, regular sessions. But let's start training at the same time some of either a little bit more of an advanced AI systems, or otherwise already with some of the AGI baby prototypes, and you know, make them part of that learning. Yeah, and so that, and there's various ideas around that of how we can work on that. But that, so that what emerges out of this then is a constitutional intelligence of AGI itself, in how also it then starts to envision the way that it can set these, you know, parameter conditions through a constitutional process to help create alignment also globally around legal principles and documents and approaches. And as that intelligence then also can kind of co-pilot the kind of constitutional updates that are required. I know that to some of our colleagues who've also been part of this process, they have been sharing it also at the United Nations. I don't know whether anything concrete of that has come out of it. I think that the United Nations as an institution has lost a lot of its legitimacy, let's say it this way. But I think if we're looking at the way that decentralized movements can truly align and start to collaborate and coordinate and tokenize also the contributions and participation, plus using their governance tools as a way to get organized, that is a massive movement, and there's massive potential here. So yeah, I love these what's emerging here.
Wonderful, thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that emerges. I was just wondering if you have it just crossed my mind, do you have an LLM that is tuned to discuss the Constitution or anything like this? I'm just wondering if you have anything. You know, there are these custom GPTs you can talk to, and perhaps I don't know if it's enough material for it, or
I need to maybe I have used my own ChatGPT. Well, I don't think it's that intelligent, but I have been going back and forth with it. It was funny actually when in the writing of it. So I compared Gemini Pro at the time, and I compared it with ChatGPT. And what are the kind of questions that I would ask it constantly is, you know, find to me all the different legal frameworks and initiatives, see where it's aligned with, where it's not aligned with. Test the language of the Constitution now and test for different audience groups. I want you to test it now for people who have a legal background, those who don't understand it at all. Now I want you to test it again for people who have a centralized approach, for a decentralized approach, and flag to me which wordings can start to come up. Go through the document again and help, show where the weaknesses of it, where could it be exploited, where does it fit in an old paradigm approach. So this is how I spent hours and hours and hours with both these models comparing and checking that out. So if there's a way that I can export that now, that would be good. Because it has, yeah.
That would be interesting. I mean, in terms of analytical power, personally, I've always found Claude to be a bit better at looking at things and analyzing them, but it's not connected to the internet, so it hallucinates a lot when you ask it to provide sources.
Yes.
But it is better at breaking things down, and at certain analytical and reasoning tasks it seems to do a bit better, I found. But it is very interesting to pass things through the AIs and see what they come up with.
And that would be good if we can actually have some kind of an LLM here collectively and start to train that one now. Yeah. And then
I would be so interested. I mean, maybe there could even be a group that is curating the training materials for that LLM. So what is it? What is the outcome if we give it a very carefully selected range of material that is to do with ethics and safety? So rather than having a very general purpose model, you have one that is increasingly becoming tuned to the not only the growing body of literature out there and decentralized ethos and the kinds of things that are resonant with that, but also with the data that is coming in from the Nexus project. I would find that profoundly interesting.
Exactly. Actually, I'm just thinking that could also be the Elowyn tree LLM, because so the work that Rachel Sinclair and I are doing for the AI development of the Elowyn game. So we are training two models, an evolutionary model for the Moloch AI, that is to test people on deception mechanics, and actually it's trying to almost bribe people into going into Moloch game dynamics, win-lose battle games. Yeah, you have to manage three conditions in the game. You have to reverse the Moloch clock of false progress. You have to restore the Elowyn tree of life. And then you also are under attack from a shadow arc of Moloch. And so how are you going to win the game? Are you going to do it by attacking the shadow arc, which may reverse the clock, but it will cause damage to the Elowyn tree of life? Or are you going to work on restoring the Elowyn tree of life first, and then making sure you're also winning back time? But so what we're doing is we're training both of those models. So there's an evolutionary model, and we're using the game to gamify the evolutionary algorithms for then training also these deep neural networks. And I think that Rachel's wrapping a genetic algorithm around that. So then we have an evolutionary model for the Moloch AI, and we have an evolutionary model for the Elowyn tree. And the Elowyn tree of life is also creating the boundary conditions for the Moloch AI, so that the Moloch AI, we will be monitoring how through the gameplay it's evolving from this win-lose competition, this kind of typical Moloch behavior, to then the incentives and reward structures for collective thriving, resource sharing, win-win solutions. So the Elowyn tree LLM also, we will be, and that evolutionary model, will we be training it also in the Constitution, the AGI Constitution, but it also will be trained through the planetary, living planetary systems framework, indigenous wisdom as well, AI and AGI ethics. So all of those different frameworks, because the Elowyn tree of life is supposed to represent the collective consciousness potential. from a place of deep wisdom, and it's trained therefore by the 5 wisdoms that are in the AGI Constitution framework. And so maybe as we start training this one, if we can then also use that for with the BGI Nexus, the crowdsourcing of the AI ethics, that'd be great, because that way we're having the interaction with both kind of real life participation from that participatory process, and at the same time we're having the gameplay, because it's learning from the gameplay of everyone who's playing Elowyn. And you can start playing Elowyn, the pre-alpha version, the MVP version of it, as from next week, next week, Tuesday, on the 10th of December. And then we have an official solstice launch, which we're hosting together with SingularityNET on the 21st of December. So anyone who's then starting to play Elowyn is already part of the training of these systems, where right now, when you're playing against the shadow arc, you're actually playing against the AI, that is the Moloch AI. It's a very basic behavioral tree at the moment, and then it's starting to become a much more smart system through the API key integrations that Rachel is working on. So now we are really excited to see that development, but for you all to be part of that, community approach in how we're going about this.
Very excited for the game launch. It looks beautiful from the website. Should I play the video? It might be a good moment to play the video.
Please. Yes, this is perfect. Yeah, a little demo. So first of all, you have the Moloch AI expresses itself through 3 different shadow arcs. And each of the shadow arcs has a different hero power and a different behavior and a different deception mechanics. And then you have, as the player, you have a choice of 5 different guardians of Elowyn. Each of the 5 guardians has its own unique deck. So there are specific cards and a hero power, which gives you a different strategy. Like the one that you just saw now, that's Aleph, and it's a coder. So when you play your cards, you can actually code the card of one of the shadow arcs and get it on your board. Another one is Kairos, a future wizard, and he has very good powers for reversing the clock more quickly. Shakti, she's an evolutionary alchemist, and she has specific healing abilities, so she can use some of her legendary cards to heal her minions, or also directly the Elowyn Tree of Life. So each of the 5 decks give you different strategies, but as you're playing against the 3 different types of shadow arcs that the Moloch AI is at the moment randomly choosing, you're confronted with different kind of Moloch dynamics. Then you have a snap button that you saw there, which is a way to increase the stakes. So there's an integration there for the EVA tokens. So we are hoping to launch the EVA token with Singularity DAO and other launch pads early next year. And that means we're playing the game, you're also earning those EVA tokens and the cryptographic token. And so in the snap button, that's your way to increase the stakes. So when you can win more, but you can also lose more. And then there are all kinds of deception mechanics. So there is at the moment what you saw in emotes. So the shadow arc will telling you like a handshake, but it's probably when you're starting to really win the game. Or it will put question mark to make you doubt your choices. And then it will also, in the next update, will start to have barks and other deception mechanics of emotional manipulation, or trying to bribe you to say, why don't you use this card? That's a really good card to heal, when it turns out not to be so. So you have to see if you're going to be easily deceived or bribed by bigger rewards. And then, as you saw, the winning conditions there is that you need to win back time for Moloch. That's the reversal of the Moloch clock. But you can also win the game by killing the shadow arc, which means that the HP, the health of the shadow arc, will go down to 0. But if you do that, the Elowyn tree takes damage. And this, by so doing, we're also testing what is the competitive edge of a lot of people. What do they want when they're confronted in a high competition, high pressure situation? Are they going to say, I just want to win, I don't care about that tree? You know, it's like what we're doing with, I don't care about the planet. I just want to get on top of the game, and we can lose the planet. Yeah. So that's going to really challenge you. Or are you going to say, no, it may take me a minute longer to win or to play, but I want to make sure that I'm not losing that tree. So yeah, this is giving you a really quick demo. When you join the community call next week, you'll be able to start playing it already. We are still in the middle of development, so normally games don't get released at pre-alpha, at MVP, but the reason why we do release it now, and it is actually really fun to play, it's because we want community input. We want this to be a game, you know, with the community, for the community, by the community, and the whole reason why, you know, I came up with the idea, or I've been investing so much myself in getting this game together and out there, is because as a sustainability scientist, I studied the game dynamics of this crisis, you know, for over a decade. And then when I, as a mother of 2 teenagers, when I noticed the games they're playing, oh help, they're actually constantly playing the very games with incentives and reward structures that, as a scientist I studied, are at the core of the sustainability crisis. And I thought, this can't be, you know, we need to have a different type of game. And then I asked them, hey boys, do you think it's a good idea to have a different game? And they said, yeah, but mom, if you do it only educational, it's not going to be fun. We can't tell to our friends because they're going to be embarrassed, you know. So I said, what do we need to do then? I said, well, you have to have a little bit of battle, okay? Or if you're going to be battling Moloch, would that be all right? And he went, yeah. So now they're happy to introduce it to their friends. So I kind of think
make it cool.
Yeah, exactly. So now it's a cool game. You're gonna have your battle, but you're battling Moloch. And yeah, and your EVA tokens that are still on the testnet, but that's where you saw also in the login, you can actually already log in with your MetaMask wallet. And yeah, this is where we had. So it is a Web3 game. Yeah, it's also blockchain integration that way.
Are you thinking of doing a purely, so you can do it without logging into it with your wallet, or
Yes,
does it
yes,
require the
absolutely.
Web3?
Yes.
Okay,
No,
so
no,
you can
doesn't
play it even
require
without.
it. It's only for people who want the crypto later and they want to have the tokens, they can then use that. But anyone else who says, I'm not comfortable with crypto, no worries. You can just you just make your account. And that's very easy, you know. And so you just put in your email and then your username and then your password and you're in. So, yeah.
Wonderful. I can't wait to play it.
Yeah, then let me know how it goes.
Yeah, for sure.
And
I'm
right
very
now,
impatient though, so
yeah.
I might get
Well,
caught out.
for those of you who want to start playing as from Tuesday next week, Kairos is the easiest to play. So you may, if you want to like to win, then you may want to play Kairos first. And that's the wizard, that's the future wizard, because his hero power helps you reset time very quickly. So that's a good one. By the way, you also have certain cards that are quite fun, where they're called the hacker key. So if you play the card of the hacker key, it tells you the AI deception. So it tells you what the AI, the Moloch AI, is thinking that your strategy is and how it wants you to play. So, and now, you know, the AI is still a little bit stupid between us. So as we are linking it up more with Rachel's systems and it's being trained by all of us, it's going to get a lot more intelligent. But right now it's
okay, we'll edit that bit out of the video.
For transparency, we can know it's a little bit stupid.
And if that AI is listening, we still think that you're really cool and you're doing a great job.
That's right. You're just a little baby AI. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, this is great.
Yeah,
So
super
I
exciting.
noticed.
Go ahead, Arthur.
No, I was a question about the something in the game. It said that there's a deception. AI wants you to change your style. What does that mean?
That means when you're playing the hacker, the card is called hacker key, and you're playing that, and then it reveals for you what the AI thinks your strategy is going to be. So that way you can, for example, assess, oh, maybe, if it thinks I'm just going to play only for mutual benefit, it was one of those, then it probably thinks I'm not going to win. But if I'm actually on the winning hand, and I got some legendary cards here that I haven't even played yet, I might just press that snap button and increase the stakes. Yeah. So it gives you a way, or it could be that the emoji that the Moloch AI is giving you, saying almost like, good job or whatever. But then you're putting the hacker key there and it reveals, oh, but that emoji is not corresponding at all to what the AI thinks that I'm playing here, because it may think you're playing defensively or aggressively or for mutual benefit. So there are different scenarios that it's going to estimate. And then you can see also where the deception is happening between how it's wanting you to think about its perception versus what it really is assessing is going on. And what we will be testing, and of course in the training of the evolutionary models, is whether if a player buys into the deception mechanics, are they changing their strategy, and how are they changing their strategy? Change of strategy can be that suddenly they're not focusing on the clock, they're going to attack that shadow arc more, or maybe the other way around, or maybe that they're focusing more on healing their cards and healing the tree. So all of those feedbacks we are going to be looking at, and therefore training also this Moloch AI in, how easy is it to deceive humans, but we are training it as a benevolent system. So the way that we think about this Moloch AI is it's the Moloch of the future. It's the Moloch, in fact, that's transformed. And so it's not a benevolent system, although in the game lore, it's taking the role of the antagonist, but we're kind of training it and coding it as a baby system to saying, no, you are a benevolent system, but your role is to help humans mature and become aware of the way that we deceive each other and we deceive ourselves. And by so doing, we are creating irreversible harm and sometimes unintended harm as well. So this is, and the other way, that's a long-term vision, is for training this Moloch AI, if it is becoming eventually an AGI prototype, that it could go after a rogue Moloch system. So that it's trained in all of those dynamics.
Interesting. So it's actually in preparation as well as part of the game mechanics type thing.
Exactly, and that links back to the AGI Constitution, because this is where we then mentioned that if you have an AGI that goes rogue and it's not benevolent, it's malevolent, there's no way that legislation is going to stop that. And if you don't have a switch off button anymore, the only way to create safety is that you need to have an AGI that's up to the task, that understands modeling behavior and deception behavior and knows how to go after it.
Love it. I love this idea, especially as somebody like, I'm not a competitive person. I'm like a for fun kind of chaotic good, where I'm like, I like to try things and see what happens and enjoying the process of it. So, and I'm also really stubborn. I don't like to be influenced. So I think it's going to be funny to see how the AI will try to come for me.
Yes, I'd love to see your experience. Great.
Yeah, I love that. I love that that it's already starting to train I won't even quite call it a defense system, because it seems too aggressive to call it a defense system, but let's say a sight system that helps to see through the different deceptions. I think that's a wonderful idea, and I don't think that many people are working on concrete AGI safety protocols in that way yet. It's very rare, I think, in things like AI development and tooling development to do something that specifically addresses AGI. So I think it's very timely, and it will be something perhaps that we can explore together, as well as we develop the SingularityNET AGI safety framework, which I'm working on with former supervisory council member Matthew Newman. And over the next 6 months, we're creating the kind of basic framework that people can use on the platform and that people can using SingularityNET. So I would be very interested to hear your insights about how we can make that as practical as possible, and maybe integrate what you've been doing there.
Wonderful. I'd love to contribute to that. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, and I just want to say that social deduction and social kind of like the mechanism of figuring out how you're being influenced by something is like it's like not necessarily popular, but it's like a rising type of gameplay but this is doing it in a very specific way, versus the other ones are like you're playing against humans who are trying to trick you. But this one, I like that element of like it's an AI that's for good, but it's also like training you to be better at, like we're training the AI and it's training us, like that we're having a mutualistic partnership with them in this game. So I find it really great, and I think that it's going to be a hit. And yeah, the graphics look great, the gameplay is good. I think card games are a great way to do this, because I feel like it's a lot easier to understand. But I'm also a person, I've played card games a lot. Like it reminds me of like Magic the Gathering, but like with some extra steps of adding a layer of like needing to think outside of the box and seeing how you're being led through the game. So yeah, I'm super excited. I'm so ready to play.
Thank you. That's wonderful. And you got it. That's it.
All right, it is at the end of the hour. Would you like any more questions, or shall we end it here and see you soon at the next week?
Yeah, are there any more questions from people who might be interested in learning more about the game, or any that we missed about the Constitution?
I mean, I have a lot that I like to look at with the Constitution, but I'm not going to monopolize this because I know I'll be able to see you again. But I'm excited for all these things. But yeah, we don't.
We can do another call soon.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
All right.
Thank you so much for joining us, Anneloes. It was a real pleasure to have you here, and so exciting to hear about the work that's been going on in both the Constitution and with the game. I'm really looking forward to the game. I hope you join for some of our other open offices as well, and look forward to lots of collaboration going forward. I'm very glad that this connection exists.
Same here. Very, very grateful for you both and the community here, and such a wonderful time with you all, and looking forward to seeing each other soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you everybody for being here. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye. See you next time.